Hello, lovelies. Sean J here, and it's Thursday's Take. I hope this finds everyone well. And again, this is for mature audiences only, so viewer discretion is highly advised. So, this is a follow up to my wonderful dating moments. This one in particular is the one that I was telling you all about, where boyfriend and I were like cuddling and connecting, and then he decided he only wanted to be friends. And so we got to connect last week, and I got to ask, questions. Now, here's the dealio. My philosophy is if you are seeing someone and they decide they don't want to see you anymore, that's perfectly fine. That happens. However, I do believe that if you have the opportunity to ask this person, so not why you dumped me, not that, but more along the lines of, so when you were dating me, what was your experience in dating me? What were things that thought you may have felt were a little like, or things that, anything. I personally think sharing that information is a good thing. Because what I believe is that friends, loved ones, they have an insight to you. And with that insight, they have an experience that other people don't have of you. And they should give you that insight when you ask it. And sometimes even when you don't ask it. Anywho, I think that if someone comes to you and they go, so what was your experience like in dating me or getting to know me? What were some like things that were like, not red flags or any of that stuff, because that puts people on the defensive, but more along the lines of like insight, like I said. And boyfriend did not want to tell me. When I tell you, child, it was like pulling teeth. And I prefaced my question with him with, how comfortable are you with sharing your experience with dating, getting to know me and like in deciding to be friends? And he felt he'd already shared that information. And to some extent, it was sort of like, well, the energy wasn't there. Like, our energies didn't mesh or something like that. I also believe that made no sense at all. I also believe that energies are fueled by things, right? So if you felt an energy being exchanged, it was either something that didn't work. And what was that? What was that fueling? So this conversation went on for a little lengthy time. And we were just talking and stuff like that. And at some point, he mentioned because our previous conversation he'd asked me, what type of men do I like? Or what type of men do I normally date? And I'm all over the board. Granted, my long-term relationship was with a white boy, but I've done them all, honey. I'm the Benetton's of when it comes to men. Anywho, so I wanted to ask that question, but I didn't want to ask it like echo. Because when you're talking to someone, they ask you a question, you ask them the same question. I didn't want to do that. So I would ask him that at a later time. Just that so happens he wanted to be friends. And so I was like, I'm still going to ask a question because I'm still curious. Well, he connected that with the meaning of why he didn't want to see me anymore. Like, that's what I was asking, and it really wasn't. And so he threw out why, well, not why, but one of his attributes that he likes big guys. He likes bears. And I was like, oh, that's fine, but that's not what I'm asking you. That was from a follow up conversation. And so I think he interpreted that as a way of like answering what he thought was my question. And my good friend Angela, baby girl, said, well, he knew you were no bear when he saw you. I said, thank you. Anywho. So that was one thing. But then we kept talking. I dropped him off at his place, and we're sitting in the car and we're talking. And I guess I told him something about my childhood and stuff like that. And he said, can I offer something? I said, certainly. That's why we're here. And so he goes, well, you mentioned that you kind of take care of yourself. You kind of like, not shield, but you have self-care is very important when it comes to your emotions. And you make things right. I work, which is true. No, granted, I put up walls or fences or what the hell you want to call them to protect my emotions because of, growing up, I was a little gay black boy. And so resiliency. And then in my relationship, there was some stuff going on there. So then he says this, and I was like, okay, great. So what that led to was that because of my shields and stuff, he says that it was interesting that we were on a date in the park, and he felt my body open up. Like I opened up and I became vulnerable. Like I let myself be vulnerable with him. And I was like, okay. He goes, well, you may want to think about that because that could be, you may want to be respectful of the person you're with. And I was like, well, how is that disrespectful? And he goes, well, not disrespectful. It's just that the person with you, who you decide to be vulnerable with so soon may not be able to receive that. And I was like, okay. And he goes, well, because I felt like I then had to take care of you. And I said, pause, pump those brakes. You don't need to take care of me. Me being vulnerable with you is just me being vulnerable with you, which meant you created a safe space, which meant, bam, I can be vulnerable. And so he was like, I think that surprised him. Maybe, I'm not sure. But it was one of those things like, he said that, and I was like, well, okay, well, I'm not going to change that. And because I have done a lot of work to get in touch with my emotions and be vulnerable with folks. And my friend Carrie, Sunshine, once said, Sean J, vulnerability looks good on you. And I was like going, okay, so that's something I've worked on. So the fact of the matter is that if I was able to be vulnerable with you, that means you created a safe space for that to happen, which is a good thing. Now, if you are not able to handle that, that's good for me to know because, and he said that, he said, you know, a lot of gay men aren't emotionally equipped for that and they may not, you may scare them off. And I go, good. And he goes, well, you may want to gauge the timing of that because this was like a third session together. I call them sessions because they're not, I guess, a date. But they were intimate. Like every time we were together, we're intimate. So I'm like going, you're creating an environment in which we're being intimate, in which I would be open. So I just found that a little weird. But I believe what it boils down to is he was not ready for that. And I say, that's fine. However, you should not create an environment of safety if you are not ready to be in it. And I don't mean taking care of the person because no one needs that. Like, that's not what I'm looking for. By no means, by at all. Sean J can take care of himself. But me being vulnerable with you is a huge, huge motherfucking step. And I'm not backstepping, backsliding, or any of that shit. So if a gay man can't handle me being vulnerable with him, bounce, bye-bye, deuces. All that other fun stuff that says get the fuck out of here. So I just thought that was interesting. But it was I will admit, driving home, I felt this incredible, I was giddy because I have done that work, and the fact that I was able to be vulnerable with someone in an intimate such situation with a man who I was attracted to and interested in, honey, that's huge. Huge, because I've been deflecting or building up walls or staying busy to keep away from that very thing. But to know that I'm able to do that, I was like, proud of myself, yes. So that was that. But he's a really sweet guy. But I think there's just like that said more about him is that he really wasn't equipped to deal with that. And that's fine. And, you know, I can take away from that just, you know, gauging with a guy. Like I may say, so if you create a safe space for me, I'm going to be vulnerable and I'm going to be open and free. But if that's something you can't handle, just let me know. Maybe I will preface that from now on. However, if I don't preface it and you can't handle it, bye-bye, darling. Bye-bye, darling. So that was that wonderful experience, and I'm just so happy that I've come some distance and continue to go that distance. So that's that. And all that to reinforce the fact that we have a responsibility to the loved ones in our lives, be it friend, intimate relationship, just people who are close to us. We have a responsibility to them and to ourselves that if we have an insight on how they move through the world and how they relate to people, we should share that if they ask. Now, if they don't ask, still sometimes it is your responsibility as a loved one to call people on their bullshit. And I think we all need to do that because people call me on my shit and I call people on their shit. That's what an intimate relationship is. Whether you're married, hanging with your homies, or your good friends, call each other on your shit. That is the only way we become better human beings. And that's the way the world needs to work because the world's fucked up right now because people don't call each other on their shit. That orange peel in the White House is a perfect example of people not pulling that child up when he needed to be pulled up. Probably needed his ass whooped. Anywho, so do that for each other. Do that for yourself. Ask the question and just simply ask, it's for personal growth. It's for growth. It's for emotional growth and for being a better human being. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not weird when someone asks you that question. It's not weird if you ask that question. Just share that insight because you have an insight to that experience that other people don't have. So just do it. Please, please, please. Also, this past weekend was Folsom Street Fair, and I didn't participate that much because I had a show, a performance, but I did go after the matinee. And I behaved a little saucy. You know, I had my jock. Was it a jock? No, it was a little thing, something else. But I did some things. Adult things. Yes, honey, I did. So, anywho, I won't tell y'all about that because that's grown folks' conversations like over a glass of wine or several. But hope all is well with everyone. Be fierce, be fabulous, be you. Smooches.